In this video, I'm going to introduce to you a little bit about MyMathLab. Now, this is an integral part of what we'll be doing this year, and you'll often do many of your homework assignments and quiz assignments using MyMathLab. Now, in order to find this website, you want to type into your address bar Pearson, MyLab, and Mastering.com. Now that's a little bit different than what they used in the past. In the past they used to use CourseCompass.com, and a lot of those older URLs still take you to the same spot. But make sure you're typing in Pearson, MyLab, and Mastering.com for this semester, and that'll take you to the right spot. Okay, so once you type that in, you get to this page right here. Now, there's a few things you can do, but probably one of the most important, if this is your first time using it, is to go to the Register button. Now, since we are students here, just go ahead and click on that Student button. And then it'll start taking you through the register process. And one of the first things you'll need is actually the course ID for this class. For the course ID this semester, look below this video for what I have typed in. Usually it starts off with Smith and then has a few numbers after it. This will change every semester, so even though I'm going to use one in this video, don't assume that it is the same one, okay? Now, once you type in that course ID, you'll hit Continue, and this is where you can then log in if you already have an account, or start setting up an account of your own. So if you've used MyMathLab in the past, feel free to type in your username and password, and it should take you to the proper course. However, if you've never had a MyMathLab account, then you want to go to Create a Pearson account over here and just click that Create button. Now, I'm not going to show you the rest of this process because it's pretty self-explanatory. You'll start entering in stuff like your email address, your username, what you want as your password, and it'll eventually take you through the entire process of creating that account. So now that this part is pretty much wrapped up, let's go ahead and get into the course on MyMathLab to see what all of that will look like. So right now I've returned back to that home screen for MyMathLab, and I'm assuming that you've already set up an account, and basically at this point you just need to log in so we can actually see the course. So here's where we're going to go to that Sign In button just above where we use that Register button. Okay, so when you click on that, you'll be taken to a screen where you can type in your username and your password. So I'm going to type in my particular username and, of course, my password. All right, and of course, sign in. Now, on the next screen, you'll basically get a list of all the different courses that you are signed up with using MyMathLab. And if you've taken this before, you might actually see some older classes in there. Now right now, of course, I teach classes, so I have lots and lots of different sections in my particular shell here. But yours will probably only have just the Math 147, or maybe a Math 147 and a couple older ones. So go ahead and click on that link for your particular class. So I'm clicking on Math 147, and then you'll actually get to see our particular layout. Now, if you've used MyMathLab in the past, you're going to see some familiar buttons from previous courses. But I'm going to take you through like a little tour of the buttons that I like to put in there, as well as how you'll use MyMathLab as you go throughout the course. So the very first thing that you see when you enter in MyMathLab is what is known as the course dashboard. This gives you a good heads up as to assignments that will be due soon, as well as your progress on each of the individual assignments. Right now it looks like my dashboard is pretty blank because I haven't done any homework yet, and really the course hasn't even started. The next button you'll see is a copy of my faculty information. This is exactly the same information that you'll see in Blackboard. I just decided to put it here so that it was a little bit more convenient to find as you were going through the material. Again, here you'll see my calendar, and if you want to see the dates, it's probably a good idea to click on that Week tab so that you can read it a little bit easier. The third button off to the left says Syllabus and Schedule. And as you can guess, this is another copy from Blackboard. It has my syllabus, the syllabus addendum, and the schedule of the course, so you can see what sections we'll be covering every single week. The next button is one that I put in. And this is where you will receive your weekly lessons. It says weekly units. If you click on that button, you'll get a drop down of all of the weeks that have been open so far. Since the course has just started, chances are yours will only show Unit 1. But as the weeks progress, more units will open up so that you'll have access to other pages. Go ahead and click on Unit 1. And you'll see that even more options open up, such as Getting Started, Linear Equations, Applications and Modeling. So these are basically the subsections of the first week. Now, you always want to click on the unit name, because it's on that page I'll give you a heads up as to what you will learn in the unit, as well as a unit checklist. Sometimes in an online class it can be very confusing to know what assignments are due at any particular time. To help you stay on track, every unit I create a checklist so that you can just go through and you know which videos to watch and which assignments to actually turn in. So anytime a weekly unit opens up, make sure you click on that weekly unit so you can see this page and grab that information. Alright, let's go into one of the subsections and let's go into Getting Started. Some of this initial Getting Started information you'll find is actually the same as what you have on Blackboard. When you get through this material, you can go on to section 1.1 where you'll see more of our lessons. So the way I like to design these is usually start off with a good lesson video that maybe takes about 20 or 30 minutes. And then I like to follow that up with several different examples, and I try and match what you'll see in a lot of the homework. When you get through the examples, I'll often highlight what homework you should do after viewing these videos. Alright, so every week just get in a habit of checking your weekly units, opening the latest unit, grabbing your checklist, and then going through the subsections of the unit. Alright, so let's close all that. The next button on the list says Homework. When you click on this button, you'll get a list of all of the available homework assignments in the course. To access any of these homework assignments, simply click on the link and they'll open up. You'll be first taken to this page where you'll get an overview of the questions that you've completed thus far, and then you can click on an individual question to open that. Once you click on one of these questions, you'll see that it is pretty straightforward. You basically get the question, and then there's a little space where you get to provide your answer. So here's one where it says decide whether the statement is true or false. X squared equals 9 and x equals 3 are equivalent equations. So you know we can answer it and say, oh yes, this is true or this is false. I'm going to say this is false. And then near the bottom I will say final check. So the computer checks my answer and says, well done, I have got this question correct. If you want to do a similar exercise, you'll notice that the buttons on the bottom have changed. So when I click that, it shuffles it around a little bit, and I can try answering it again. Now usually when you get an answer correct, you don't want to mess with it too much. And if you want extra practice, I'll talk about that a little bit later on for the study plan. So let's see. Let's suppose that we actually get this one wrong so you can see what happens then. So it says decide whether the statement is true or false. And I'm going to say it is true. Then I'll click the bottom where it says final check. And you can see that the computer quickly checks the answer and says that it is incorrect, and it gives me a little bit of a hint. It says remember two equations are equivalent if they have the same solution set. So when I click done, I can say we'll save my best attempt from last time, and I can click similar exercise to try this again. Now as the questions get more complicated, you may have to enter in different types of information other than just true and false.
For questions that you have to type in a little bit more, you'll notice a little tool palette off to the side is opened up. This is so you can put in things such as square roots, fractions, and absolute values. Now, if you really get stuck on a question, feel free to use the right panel for some of the resource materials. Some questions have a Help Me Solve This button, and this will basically walk you through the problem and tell you all of the steps that you need to do in order to solve it. Some questions have an animation or video button, which will take you to publisher-provided resources like their own particular videos or an animation they've set up to help you understand the concept. If you click on the textbook button, this will take you to the section in your textbook that relates to the question. So if you're doing one on linear equations, it's going to take you to the section on linear equations in the book. The Ask My Instructor button opens up a dialog box so you can send me an email about this particular question. The great part about this is that it has my email address already stored in there, and it provides me a link to the question you are working on. So you don't really have to describe the problem. You can just say, you know what, I'm stuck on this problem. Here's how far I got. Can you take a look at it and help me out? The last button is to actually print out the assignment if you are more comfortable with working with a physical copy. What some students like to do is they like to get into the system, print off their assignment, and actually work through each of them by hand, and then return to the system and enter them in one by one. It's up to you, depending on how much access you have to a computer, what you want to do, but usually you don't end up printing it off too often. Alright, so let's close out our homework. The quizzes are set up much like the homework in that when you click on the button you get a list of all the available quizzes in the course. Simply click on a quiz and it will open it up, and then you can give it a try. Quizzes are slightly different in that when you type in your answer, it will not tell you whether you got it correct or not until the very end of the quiz. Another change is a lot of those resources on the right side, like Help Me Solve This or Ask My Instructor, are no longer available. So you really should be trying to do the quizzes without too many resources. You only get a few attempts at these quizzes, so make sure that you make each of them count. Alright, after the quizzes, we have our discussion boards. Since this is an online class, it's really difficult to try and get a lot of the class interactions that you would normally have. So that's what the discussion boards are for. There is already one loaded in there so that you can meet the rest of your classmates. This discussion board is a little bit different than Blackboard in case you've ever used that system. So let me walk you through how this works. When you click on discussion boards, the topics will list out all of the boards that are currently open. So I have one that says Ask the Instructor, another one that says Meet Your Classmates, and there may be even a few others open from there, which we'll do later on in the course. Alright, I'm going to click on Meet Your Classmates. This will give you a little bit of information about the discussion board. So what things will I be looking at in the discussion? What things should you post in here? Alright, after reading the information, click on the Respond button, and then you can leave your own post into the discussion board. So maybe give it a subject such as your name, and then you can type in the rest of the information that is required. When you're done, you can press Post Response. So you can see that the discussion board isn't a whole lot different, it's just laid out maybe in a slightly different way. Now one thing that I do in order to make sure that my students can get a hold of me is I have an online office. When you click on that button, you'll be taken to a page that describes a little bit about my online office, as well as a link that will go into that online office. Now this is not open 24 hours a day, but I will post hours in the second week that will describe when this will be open and when it will not be open. If you go to that page now, you'll find that there's a survey that you can fill out of when the online office is most convenient to you. So I really suggest going into that, filling out the survey. That way I have a good idea of when I should post my online office hours. It's a really great resource. It's basically a whiteboard that we both share so we can draw out some math problems and you can get some good help. Alright, the next button is your gradebook, so you can see how well you're doing in the course at any given stage. This will list out all the assignments that you've completed in the course, as well as the grade that you have received on that assignment. Sometimes the computer will only show it a few at a time, like maybe just the ones from the past few weeks or the ones from the past few months. If you want to see all of the assignments from the very beginning, you can use the button that says Entire Course to Date. If you want something that's a little bit more summarized, click the Show Overall Score button, and it'll give you a breakdown as to the big categories and how much you've earned towards those. Alright, almost done. The study plan is a list of example questions that you can use to get some additional practice. The study plan is not graded in this course, and in fact it's totally optional. But I really recommend that if you want some additional practice on homework assignments, that you go into the study plan and give those questions a try. I'll be describing the study plan a little bit more as we get closer to our first test. Alright, the next button is our ebook. And this is where you can access the entire book in an online form. So in case you're ever near a computer but you forgot to bring your book, no worries, you can click on this button and read any of the sections that you want. Alright, some of the last buttons on here, like Tools for Success, are just a few additional things that can help you out, such as, do you want a graph and calculator reference card, or maybe some algebra review cards? You know, here's some great stuff that you can print off and maybe help you a little bit more in the class. Alright, about the last thing I want to cover is the multimedia library. The multimedia library is where the publisher likes to put a lot of its material. So sometimes the publisher likes to make its own videos or make its own PowerPoint slides. You can easily find those by first selecting the chapter that you want to look at, so maybe chapter 1, then the section, and then select all the boxes that you want to draw resources from. So if you'd like to see some videos, maybe have that box selected, and maybe some PowerPoint slides, you can select that one as well. When you click Find Now, it'll bring up all of the PowerPoints and videos from that particular section. So here are some additional resources that you can use even after you've seen my videos. Alright, so that's about all the information that you will find in MyMathLab, and again, you will spend the majority of your time using this system. Your weekly habit should be at the very beginning of the week. Get into MyMathLab, visit your weekly units, pull off your checklist for the week, and start going through each of the videos and assignments.